Monday Night Football, we have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. And there's big contests available on both DraftKings and FanDuel. I'm about to be breaking all of that down, looking at the top projected lineups, best players to target, best captain/MVP options, all that good stuff. All I ask from you is to do me a favor, like this video, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Do it. Really do appreciate it. Helps keep the content around here free. And then also, if you want to sign up for the football package at Stokastic.com, I've got a link included below, and everything is included in our football package, including all the tools I'm about to be showing here on screen. So I've already built out lineups for DraftKings and going to be doing it for FanDuel after we're done with this right here. So what we've done here is I built out 10,000 lineups in the contest generator, and then I simulated them. So they played each other 40,000 times, and from there, we could identify which lineups are expected to have the highest ROI in contests. And so favor the top 150. And of my lineups that I've built, the number one projected lineup with the highest simulated ROI, it's Jordan Love in the captain spot with Davante Adams. We've got Wicks in here. We've got Reed. We've got Garoppolo, and then also Dobbs. So pretty heavy on the offenses here. We've got both quarterbacks. We've got a bunch of pass catchers. So that is at least how the number one overall lineup projects. And then we'll see how the overall exposure looks. We're primarily getting to the passing games for both teams. We'll find that out shortly. As far as lineups that are expected to have the most dupes. And yeah, no massive surprise here because of how top heavy the contest pays out on DraftKings. And I have the payout set to first for that. All the lineups here that are expected to be the most duped, they are not the lineups that have the highest simulated ROI because of all those dupes dragging down the simulated ROI. But the lineup that is expected to be duped the most times based on the data here, it is Jacoby Myers. It is Anders Carlson. We've got Carlson kickers on both teams. Both the Packers and the Raiders kickers are Carlsons. Then we've got Davante Adams, Jimmy Garoppolo, Josh Jacobs, and then the Raiders defense. This is the lineup that is expected to be duped the most. And I'm not too far behind this lineup as well, pretty heavily duped with Myers, Carlson, Adams, Garoppolo, and then Josh Jacobs. So no mistake there. Both Carlsons, two Carlsons in this game, both of them kickers. Now let's go ahead and look at the exposures and see what we're getting to the most of these top 150 lineups. And yeah, so this definitely mirrors what we're seeing in terms of at least our top projected lineup. Two most rostered players are the two quarterbacks. We are getting to Jimmy Garoppolo and Jordan Love the most in the flex spots, 58% of Garoppolo, 52% of Jordan Love, so overweight to each of them there. Although one thing I am noticing is that actually our captain exposure is not skewing towards the quarterbacks. Our two most rostered captains are Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams, so these have been the overall two best fantasy players from each of these teams over the last couple of years, so probably not a massive surprise that ended up being the case, but let's see where the quarterbacks are. So here's some Jordan Love. Still getting to 11% of Jordan Love in the captain spot. And then Jimmy G, only 3% of Jimmy G. So actually underweight to Garoppolo in the captain spot, about even with the field on Jordan Love. Slightly overweight, 11% compared to 9% ownership. Other players we're getting the most of here, Josh Jacobs, Davante Adams. So yeah, including the captain exposure, we actually are getting the most overall ownership on Josh Jacobs and on Davante Adams, two most rostered players, all things being considered. Slightly more contrarian plays, about double the field here on Luke Musgrave. He's a somewhat contrarian option. You know, for a one-game slate, at least as contrarian as it's going to get for a player well overweight to the field too, but project for 20% ownership and getting to him in 36% of lineups. As far as other flex position plays, also overweight to A.J. Dillon. So between the two running backs for Green Bay, getting to 26% of A.J. Dillon, also 26% of Aaron Jones, but with Aaron Jones being the more popular of the two, we end up a little bit overweight to A.J. Dillon, a little bit underweight there to Aaron Jones. Let's keep scrolling down. Are there any really contrarian plays? Yeah, so Wicks, who also, if I remember correctly, Wicks was in our highest projected lineup, right? Was he? No. Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, never mind. So Wicks was in our highest projected lineup. And then also good looking contrarian value option here. Sub 10% exposure to him by the field. We're getting to him in 20% of lineups. And then Austin Hooper on the Raiders side of the game. He's only projected for 9% ownership, got to 16.7% of them. So if you're looking for a low-owned, cheap play to save some salary with, it looks like Wicks is the best option from the Green Bay side of the game. Hooper the best option from the Raiders side of the game. As far as the kickers, we're getting to Anders Carlson in 14% of lineups. And we're getting to Daniel Carlson in 8% of lineups. So underweight to both the kickers right now. Who else are we coming in underweight to? Yeah, so Carlson, Jacoby Myers. Not going to say we're underweight to the field on Davante Adams because we are overweight to the field to him. It's just more exposure to him overall because we're getting to him so much in the captain spot. So, a little bit misleading here to say we'd be underweight to the field on Adams because we aren't, but we are underweight to Carlson, underweight to Jacoby Myers, and also underweight to Romeo Doubs. Now let's go and build some lineups out for FanDuel using the contest generator. And we will see what ends up popping up here. And while I'm doing this, I'll go check what the contests are on FanDuel and what it pays out to first place, because that's what I'm going to use to set the payout to first in the simulation tool when we do this right after this. All right, so big tournament on FanDuel is a $9 buy-in, $750,000 prize pool, $150,000 to first place. So we'll set it to 20% to first. Simulate these lineups. 20% to first. And let's run it. See what ends up popping up. And I have a feeling, it's a very educated guess, but based on the ownership we got to on DraftKings, I'm going to assume that we're going to be getting to a lot of Josh Jacobs in the MVP spot over on FanDuel. So one thing that we do see, obviously difference between FanDuel and DraftKings is the half-point PPR bonus. So considering we're getting to a lot of Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams in the captain spot on DraftKings, I would think that we still get to a bunch with the MVP on FanDuel. Maybe a little bit more lean towards Jacobs than Adams, but we'll see. Favoriting the top 150. And yeah, our number one overall projected lineup is Josh Jacobs. A little bit of correlation here with the Raiders defense also in it. And then actually two running backs on the Green Bay side, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon and Jimmy Garoppolo. So definitely going to be a unique lineup, which makes lineup stand out a little bit more in some of these single game contests. And then this one over here, second best projected lineup. And there's gaps here, right? So these top two have a pretty big gap in sim ROI compared to every other lineup. This one, Jordan Love, Luke Musgrave, the Packers defense, Davante Adams, and then Jaden Reed. So this is a 4-1 Packers onslaught stack. As for lineups that are most duped, since the payout on FanDuel is only set to 20% to first place, you're seeing more of these duped lineups that are projecting well end up being in the top 150. If I was to change the percentage payout first to 30% on FanDuel, these lineups would not have nearly as good of simulated ROI, and most of them probably wouldn't show up in my top lineups. That said, the lineup that is expected to be duped the most over on FanDuel, Davante Adams, Daniel Carlson, Jimmy Garoppolo, Josh Jacobs, and then Anders Carlson. So double kickers, and then we've got Jacobs and Davante Adams there. That is going to be chalk lineup. If you're playing cash games on FanDuel, that is one that could make sense for today. Exposures. What is it that we're getting to? And yeah, guess correctly on this because we have Josh Jacobs in the MVP spot, north of 40% of FanDuel lineup. So really loading up on Josh Jacobs there. And Jordan Love as the next most rostered MVP, followed by Davante Adams and then Jimmy Garoppolo. So actually a little bit underweight here to Davante Adams in the MVP spot and about even with the field on Garoppolo, getting overweight to Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs in the FanDuel MVP spot. Other players we're getting a good amount of, a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's very popular, so not all that much different than the field. Luke Musgrave, once again, showing up as a contrarian-ish option to save some salary with. Nearly half of our lineups on FanDuel here of the top 150 have Luke Musgrave in them, and he's only projected for 20% ownership. Also getting to a good amount of the Packers defense. So Packers defense showing up in 30% of lineups. So that is another option if you're looking for like a Packers onslaught type stack. Looks like the Packers are showing up in a good amount of those. And what else? Looks like kind of interesting. The DraftKings lineups favored the Raiders side of the game a little bit more. FanDuel lineups favoring the Packers a little bit. Other than the MVP ownership here on Davante Adams, on Josh Jacobs, but underweight to the field on Adams in both the flex and the MVP spot on FanDuel, overweight to the Packers defense. And then some other guys too that are lower owned, we're overweight to Jaden Reed here. What about the running back situation? So yeah, pretty similar to the DraftKings setup where we're getting to a little bit more of A.J. Dillon than Aaron Jones, but it's not as pronounced on FanDuel because Aaron Jones is projected for less ownership here. So about even with the field on Aaron Jones, whereas we were underweight on DraftKings and then slightly overweight to the field on A.J. Dillon on FanDuel, which was also the case over on DraftKings. Who are we underweight to the field to here? Same scenario, underweight to Daniel Carlson on FanDuel, or underweight to him on DraftKings as well. Josh Jacobs, underweight to him in the flex, but it's only because of the amount of MVP ownership that we're getting to him. Same deal with Jordan Love, a lot of MVP ownership, which means we're getting to less of him in the flex spot, but more of him than the field overall. We are definitely underweight to the field on Devontae Adams, underweight to him both the MVP and the flex spot over on FanDuel, and then coming in slightly underweight to Christian Watson as well. Were there any crazy contrarian plays we were getting to? Not really. Like a couple of lineups with Tucker Kraft here, a little bit of Hunter Renfrow, but nothing too significant. 6% of Renfrow, 2.7% of Tucker Kraft. So if you guys are looking to really go dumpster diving to differentiate a large field GPP lineup, those are a couple of guys that you could look at. So that's going to do it for FanDuel and DraftKings. Guys, if you like this video, do me a favor, like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to sign up for the Stokastic NFL package, which is going to include all of the stuff that I just showed here on screen, sign up using the link below, and you're going to get access for a week, a month, whatever it is that you choose to sign up for. Links for that below. Other than that, guys, I'm going to be on the deep dive tonight with Eric Lindquist, 6:15 to 7:15 p.m. Eastern time. So if you want a more in-depth breakdown of DraftKings and FanDuel, go check out that show. Good luck, guys. Hope to see you later.